Welcome to On the Way, where we explore the difference following Jesus makes in our lives. During Season 4, we are talking about the fruit of the Spirit, listed by Paul in Galatians 5:22 and 23. On the Way is produced by the Baptist Standard, a donor-supported provider of news, opinion, and resources for living like Jesus. We're glad you're with us today. We have with us today Katy Reed-Hodges. She's on the Pastoral Staff of First Baptist Church of Arlington. And today we're going to talk about one of the fruits of the Spirit, or fruit of the Spirit, that Paul lists in Galatians 5:22 and 23. We're going to talk about faithfulness. Katy, it's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I'm going to let you plug something really quick.
Okay.
You are a graduate of...
Truett Theological Seminary at Baylor University.
Yeah, all right.
I am.
All right.
Actually, okay, recently my husband and I are now co-presidents of the Alumni Association, which is a cool title with not, we get to carry around a cool title with not carrying around a lot of responsibility. And so,
hey,
anyway.
that is the way to go.
Yeah,
to have the
we've
title and not so much responsibility.
And not much to do. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
All right.
So yeah, there's my plug.
All right. Well, so let's dive in to faithfulness. Katy, we read this word faithfulness in this list, and I'm curious if we really understand what this word means biblically or in Paul's imagination. What are we talking about when we talk about faithfulness?
I think it's interesting because in that verse in Galatians, which we've all memorized, well, if you grew up in a church, you memorized a song. I grew up Methodist, so I memorized a different song is what I've learned with, I work with college students a lot. They learned one with hand motions and I did not. But when you learn the song and you hear faithfulness, it was surprising to me when you look at the Greek and you look at it kind of in the order, that it's really just the word for faith that's used all over the Bible. It's used like 243 times, that word, in the New Testament, Greek. And so for some reason in that, Paul uses the word faith, but almost every English translator translates it as faithfulness. It's like it fits better in this list of things, but the root of it is still just that word. It's pistis, pistis, that's faith. And so, and that word faith is used, when you think of all the verses about faith, that by grace you've been saved through faith, it's just that word, faith. And what we think about faith, that word faith, is that it's God's gift to us, yet in that list that Paul uses, it's somehow the fruit of God working in us as well. And so I just find it fascinating that it's at the same time this steadfast belief that we have, this conviction of belief, that's both God's gift to us and all these other verses in Pauline scripture, but then you get to that one and it's also something that's built within us and strengthened through our time with the Spirit. Because it's a fruit of living with the Spirit. So I think it has this both and. I think it's very rich when you actually look at it within that Galatians kind of laundry list of things the Spirit does within us, So
it's a gift from God that produces the gift.
Kind of more of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think when we look at faith in the Bible, it's always something that's given to us by God. I think by definition, that's just the word. It's this conviction of belief, but it's always kind of first given as a gift from God. You start there, and so I think when we come to faith, it's because God has pursued us. It's God's initiative, and then when we look at how Paul says that in that setting, in this fruit of the Spirit, it's like when you live life in step with the Spirit, because that's what that Galatians passage is about. When you live life in step with the Spirit, it somehow produces more fruit of that gift. It's like you get more of it, which is this great biblical. We could say that about a lot of things. We increase in glory, Paul says. We increase in faith. So, yeah, I think it fits somewhere in there.
What's the direction of this faithfulness? It's not just a generic faith.
Yeah, it has direction, has trajectory, right? So, well, I think, first of all, it's faith back to God. It's steadfast belief, this conviction of belief in what we believe. Kind of what you think of, say, do you believe in God? Do you have faith in God? It's true. But it involves trust. It involves, it does involve steadfastness. But then also because it's the Spirit, it's life with God. It's our trust in God, our confidence in God, our belief in God, but then the fruit of it really is our faith toward, I mean, when we talk about faithfulness, I think one of the first things we think of is our faithfulness toward maybe our relationships. Like I think about my faithfulness of my husband and toward my husband, because that's just classic, Christian living is what God gives us. Then we show up to the kingdom with it, we show up to the church with it, but also it overflows into our life. It's very practical, it's very lived out faith. And so
okay, you said something that I want to unpack.
Okay.
You said show up to the kingdom.
Did I? That sounds like
you did.
It's a good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say there, we don't just live life with God. Even the desert monks don't just live life with God. They then show up to something. They then turn it into the work of God. And it all looks different. But when I say show up to the kingdom, I mean we take what God gives us and we use it to build something beautiful on this earth through His church and for the kingdom, which I think are really close together in our work in the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because when I heard you say that, show up to the kingdom, for me, and maybe for some others, that's a really powerful picture. When you show up to something, you bring your whole self. You come ready to participate.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, you're sort of all in, you're all there.
Yeah, we've been reading Exodus as a church, and one of my bosses kind of showed this scripture that I think I had overlooked about when you bring what you're going to offer to build the temple or to build the tabernacle, that no one shows up empty-handed. That's how there's a verse in there. It says no one's going to show up empty-handed, and we kind of talked about, man, in our church, what if no one showed up empty-handed on a Sunday morning? Whatever that means. It's not just money or stuff, but you show up, and so often in our culture, people just go, I guess you show up, but in the lowest level of that. I want people to show up in the highest level. You're present and you bring everything you have to the work of, redeeming and loving the world. Even our faith, I guess, even our belief system, even just everything. So, yeah.
That's a pretty good segue into the next question about what this kind of faith looks like in the world, that if there's a difference between the faithfulness that Paul's talking about, this whole-bodied, whole person, whole self showing up, versus our tendency in our culture to go somewhere to be seen and to take a selfie and to say we had the experience, we saw it, we were there, but then we leave and we have no continuing commitment to it or involvement, whether it be financial or otherwise. That would seem to me to be sort of an opposite to the kind of faithfulness that Paul is talking about. What do you think about that?
Well, and I think the first thing that comes to mind is that just drives down, there's this reality that it is God's gift to us, that conviction of belief, even in a world that has so much transient, the attitude, you just, if it's popular, you do it. If it's convenient, you'll do it. And if it requires grit and steadfastness, then maybe someone else will do it for us, And I think, and I'm guilty of that. I don't know. The harder things are harder to do because they're hard. But I think when we talk about our culture, man, the gift of conviction of belief and how that changes how we live and how we do day to day, and certainly how we do church, to have a conviction of belief that you carry with you, even over the last decade. Culture has shifted so much, but to be able to know what you stand for and stand in and walk through the world with that, it's different, and it's certainly a gift of the Spirit, and it's the fruit of God within, because you can't just do that. Obviously, people aren't doing that. So, yeah, it's a spiritual gift. It really is.
We'll be right back after a 15-second sponsor break.
Since 1952, South Texas Children's Home Ministries has focused on healing hearts and sharing hope. Their 9 ministries focus on helping hurting children and families, all regardless of an individual's ability to pay. To find out more, visit www.stchm.org.
You've said a couple of times that this is a gift. It's something that's given. And something I hear in that is that it can't be manufactured. You can't produce this kind of faithfulness in yourself, where if you just try hard enough, if you just want it enough, that it's going to happen, you're going to have it.
Well, I think that's right, and I don't want to mistake that for not no effort on your part. There is effort, but it's not earning. You can't earn good faith, but you certainly can practice the spiritual disciplines and make room for God to give you some of this. But it's not. Yeah, I don't think I can just grit my teeth and try really hard and all of a sudden become a person of deep faith. It's really about walking with God. I don't want to say trial and error, because it's God, but there's a reason that the more spiritually mature people have some time under their belt of trusting God in the small things and growing deeper faith in the large things. That's about God, God growing us. Yeah, so that's why I say it's a gift, because it's born of the Spirit, but it is nurtured, and I think the spiritual disciplines go right with anything we talk about with the Spirit. Is how do we make room for the Spirit in our life? How do we recognize the Spirit in our life? And how do we look different in 5 years than we do right now in the Spirit? Yeah.
Where are some places that you're seeing this kind of faith lived out? Where are you seeing this fruit?
Well, I think it is. I feel like I always boil these things down to like home, literally home, because I'm obviously married and I want to be the most faithful and faith-filled wife that I can be. And my husband is a great example of faithfulness, because he's just steady and loyal and good, even when I'm not. I mean, to me, that's faithfulness. When I embody it is Ryan Hodges.
And he's not sitting there in the room with you, correct?
No, I don't even know if he can hear me, but he'll probably
he'll
listen
hear this
to this
later. Yeah.
Yeah, and depending on how we're doing when this airs, then it might get me some points. So he could be reminded. But no, I think the marriage relationship is a good place to exhibit faith and faithfulness. I think at our church we've been through months and months and months of pandemic, and we're finally kind of on the other side, kind of, and I think we've seen, as corporately, we've seen and celebrated some things that we've seen God do just in terms of his faithfulness. But then I've seen great faith in our congregation where people have lost their jobs during COVID, yet still given of themselves during that time because they have faith that God will take care of them. And this is just their prioritization of their life is to do that. And so I think that's a great example of faith. Even the faith that God can be your companion, even though you've been alone for 18 months in your apartment. These my friends that live alone, I think they've had great faith to still be, to still trust that God's enough for them, even though all their social avenues have gotten taken away. I think, you can go over and over on just when we've gotten kind of under a little bit of a vice grip with COVID, everything's just stressful. I think you've seen faith exhibited much more in the past year than maybe the year before.
Yeah. Well, and for your church, First Baptist Arlington, this is a big year for First Baptist Arlington, 150 years.
Yeah,
and
we will celebrate that very soon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as an institution, as a church, an organization, the life of that church in its community, you don't get to 150 years if you don't demonstrate some amount of faithfulness to God, to your mission, your purpose for existing, to one another as a congregation. But one of the things I know First Arlington is known for is its faithfulness to the community in terms of its ministering to the community and being engaged in the community. And sometimes when we see something like that, because we don't live 150 years, it's hard for us to piece together that this big, sort of long example of faithfulness is patched together with hundreds and thousands of individual lives of faithfulness, and which is, what you're describing in the short term, sort of in the immediate, in the present sense, the faithfulness of the congregation now in the face of the pandemic. And the things that it's had to go through over these last several months, and some things it'll have to sort out in the months ahead, is sort of a continuing expression of 150 years of history, but we can't rest on that history. We have to be faithful ourselves right now.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed. You know, it's interesting to think about what faithfulness looked like during the last pandemic, you know, because we were there in the 1900s, and what it's looked like in those individuals. And in a church like ours, it's crazy, like the legacy, it's someone's great-grandmother or whatever was doing that. But we've been asking a lot, what's next? You know, what's on, we've been calling it the other side. I think we've stolen that from some Fresh Expressions material, but what's on the other side for us, you know, because we can't just ride on tradition or loyalty or anything. We trust that God has a new vision for us in the next 10 years. And so what is that? And who are the faithful that are going to carry that? And what, you know, I think most recent history, I'd say we just love and celebrate Mission Arlington and all that it has done for us in the last 35 years. And I think we're looking for how we, of course, continue that and sustain that. But what is the next big thing that God has? You know, we did a big push for international mission because we think that's valuable, and those are you're never done, of course, but those are sustained and kind of going. And so we've just been asking God, what's the next thing that you want us to? That only faith, it's a faith-sized kind of endeavor. It's not just good ideas, but what is it from God's Spirit that He wants us corporately to accomplish in Arlington for His kingdom in the next season?
Yeah.
So pray with us.
Yeah.
Everyone.
We'll be right back after this short sponsor break. High Ground Advisors has a 90-year history of providing investment management and planned giving solutions to churches, faith-based organizations, and charitably minded individuals dedicated to transforming lives. High Ground is trusted by over 450 nonprofit clients, and we're one of them. High Ground has partnered with Baptist Standard for over 70 years by offering a comprehensive charitable giving and investment solutions model, which includes asset management, planned giving education and development, account support services, real estate and minerals management, and expert legal consultation. High Ground and the Baptist Standard share similar values, such as serving those who are called and dedicated to transforming lives and being a trusted caretaker of legacies. They also value good stewardship, helping those who desire to be good stewards of their financial resources to find creative giving solutions to fulfill that calling. We trust High Ground and consider them a loyal partner because they deliver the performance results we depend on to grow our mission. With nearly a century dedicated to the nonprofit sector, and as a nonprofit themselves, they understand the needs and challenges specific to us. They give us the opportunity to work with people who share our faith and values. They come alongside our mission in ways that other investment management firms can't. They know that what they do to protect, strengthen, and grow our mission is ultimately in service to the gospel. To learn more about how High Ground can partner with you or your organization, visit their website at highgroundadvisors.org. So these are some places where we're seeing faithfulness lived out. We've talked a little bit about what this faithfulness looks like, what Paul's referring to, the direction of that faith. So if faith is a gift, and we believe it is, but it's a gift that requires work on our part. We have to be involved in this gift.
I think so.
How do we do that? How do we practice this?
Well, my first thing is it sounds like extreme. Maybe if you're trying to practice faith, that you might go do something ridiculous and then hope that God shows up, jump off the roof with an umbrella, and just hope that, when we were kids.
And put all the responsibility on God to take care of.
That seems, unless God, I don't know, you need a lot. If you told me that God really wanted you to do that, we'd just have a pastoral chat about it and then maybe not do that. But yeah, I think, that the basic premise of it, how do we do this? How do we increase our faith or walk in this? I think we're never too good for the daily spiritual disciplines. I think there's no shortcuts away from reading our Bibles faithfully and just listening to what God has for us, what word He has, spending time and making good time, spending time in prayer, listening to the Spirit lead us. And then I think it is, what does God have for you to do kind of outwardly in this season of life through your church for the kingdom? I mean, is that trying to improve your neighborhood for the sake of the gospel? Is that some relationships you're working on? Are you trying to wake up every Sunday morning and teach 2-year-olds? I mean, what does God have for you? And I think those expressions of doing increase our faith quite a bit, because there are things that we can't do without the help of God and the faithfulness of God on that end. But I think that, I don't know, I think I work with college students a lot, and there's no shortcuts. You can't leave home base of Bible reading, prayer, fasting, these basic spiritual disciplines. They're what we do for a reason, but it does need an outward expression. You do have to go and do. I think do what you can with what you have, and then we trust that God will kind of build that within us. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say you can't leave home base. Of course, that brings up a baseball metaphor an image of baseball in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. But you do need to leave
the
home
idea
base
is,
in baseball.
well, yeah, you do, but that's where you hit a home run from. You don't hit a home run from first base, second base, or third base, and it all comes back to the fundamental. This is where you start. This is where the excitement, starts for the runner. And also to continue that metaphor. And of course, this is easy in Arlington because you've got the Rangers right there. So,
yes.
To tie in.
Right for the picking.
That's
yes.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
But you also, as a hitter, you have to go out there believing that you're going to hit the ball at least once. Otherwise, you're just not going to show up. To go back to that earlier picture,
There's a confidence. It's a God confidence, but it's a confidence that what you're trying to accomplish, you really could do, And I think if you carry the baseball metaphor or softball, because I grew up playing softball.
Okay, there you go. Okay,
it's the same.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Same fundamentals, but I think if you think that you just show up to the game and you're going to kill it, you've missed the whole thing. It's really about what happens in the day-to-day and behind the scenes, and that's where faith is built. And then it's the game is it's game time. I mean, that's different, right? Game time is different than the practice, which
that's right.
Really,
yeah.
When we say spiritual disciplines might sound weird. It's really spiritual practices. I mean, you can interchange those, but it's what you do in the practice, even to build our faith, which is just spending time with God, knowing Him, building our trust in Him in the small things. Then it's game time. Then we're gonna ask the church to give generously to some campaign that's in a weird direction, seemingly weird direction. Well, that's because we spent a lot of time in the prayer closet making sure this is really what God wants for our people, And so I think that all ties together. Yeah. That baseball metaphor is good. We can carry that one. Yeah. Good job.
Well, Katy, it is really good to spend this time with you and to talk about faithfulness. I think that we are at a place in our lives and in our history as communities, as churches, as the church, as a nation, as a culture, when we need the gift of faith. We need God to pour this into us, and we need to practice it.
Yeah, we do. We need God's conviction of belief in His ways, that we believe in Him to carry this for us, and we just get in line, And we do. We need that fresh spirit in our lives. So, amen.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. That was a delight. Thanks, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Following Jesus is a way of life carried out over a lifetime. If this podcast has encouraged you to become a follower of Jesus, or to follow Him more closely, we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this podcast or found it helpful, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts so others can find it more easily. Thank you for being with us today. On the Way is produced by the Baptist Standard, a donor-supported provider of news, opinion, and resources for living like Jesus. To make a donation, visit baptiststandard.com/donate. To receive the Baptist Standard weekly newsletter, visit baptiststandard.com and click or tap subscribe.